everyone hear me? Perfect, thank you. We'll just get started in just a couple minutes here. Hi, everyone. Everyone see everything and hear everything? Okay, perfect. Okay, well, we have 16 of us on, and I think there was 19 enrolled, so I think we're doing pretty good. So we'll get started here. So thanks so much for joining me this morning. It's really interesting to do this all across Canada, and I am curious to see where everyone's joining in from. So if you're able and you'd like to write in the chat just to say where you're joining us from. I'm in Halifax. I work at a CFB Halifax, and we also do some stuff in Shearwater as well. Cold Lake, great. Comox, wonderful, all across. Hi, Cindy and Lisa and Erin, perfect, all the girls that I trained with. Wonderful. That's great, thanks so much. So the first thing I want to do is start off, I'll put up the PowerPoint here so you won't see me for a little bit just because I'm want to make sure that the screen shows what I'm looking to. But the first thing I want to do is to see if anyone has any particular expectations of what they wanted to hopefully learn in this class or in this session, just so that I can take that forward in the event that we want to kind of delve into something a little bit more in another topic. Just something that you might want to learn about, and maybe we can think about doing that for a webinar in the next couple weeks. So if you have anything, then let us know. You can just write it in the chat there. I also want to let you know that when I'm going through the PowerPoint, I haven't been able to see the chat while I'm sharing that screen. So if you have any questions, you can just write them in there, and then I will take a look at them at the end of the PowerPoint. Okay, perfect. So let's get started here. Just bear with me here for a second. Okay, there we go. Okay. So can everyone see the PowerPoint? I don't have it set to full screen yet, but I just want to make sure that that's what's sharing on my screen. Okay, perfect, wonderful, thanks so much. Okay, perfect. So this morning we are going to talk about healthy eating and really kind of a nutrition 101, the basics of what nutrition is and how we can eat healthy, and especially during this time where we're stuck at home and we don't want to venture out too much. So again, my name is Victoria Stead. I'm a registered dietitian by trade, and I'm a health promotion specialist in Halifax and have been on that team since July of last year. So approaching the 1 year, which is great, having a lot of fun with it, and this is a really great experience as well. So before we get started, I just want to share some of these points. So the presentation that you're about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in this webinar may be of a sensitive nature and not appropriate for children, so we ask for parental discretion. Please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar, either on camera or in the chat, is not to be discussed outside of the webinar. And this webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing later on cafconnection.ca. Though active participation is encouraged, you may simply follow along without using the chat or the video microphone functions if you prefer. So the first thing I really want to talk about is balanced eating. So this can also be referred to as a balanced diet. So I want to talk to you about what balanced eating is and then how we can get a balanced diet. So this is Canada's food guide, the new model that came out in January of 2019, I believe. There's still some pieces that haven't been put together yet with this food guide, but this is the main point of what they're trying to demonstrate. So Health Canada has kind of foregone that little rainbow that they used to have, and now we just have the plate model, which is super wonderful, a great teaching method, really visual. So what we really want to get out of this is that if you think about when you're setting your plate for dinner, we think about measuring and all of that stuff. If we were to measure out, oh, what's the serving size of this many vegetables, or how much protein should I have? Really, the rule of thumb is that if you look at your plate, you want half of that to be an assortment, a colorful assortment of vegetables and fruits. You want a quarter of your plate to be protein foods. So a big focus with Canada's food guide this time around is lean meats, of course, and then also a focus on plant-based proteins. So this would be your legumes, your lentils, your beans. We'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. And then the other quarter of your plate is going to be your whole grains. So a really big focus on whole grains. So nothing refined or anything like that. So balanced eating is really the best way to provide your body with all of the nutrients that it needs to function. So by eating a balanced diet, you should be able to get all the nutrients that you need without having to supplement with anything else. Now that might change depending on any other health conditions you may have, but for the majority of the population, if you really eat like this, then you can generally get everything you need. I'm just going to close out of this for a second just to make sure that everything's still happening. Is this working good for you guys? You can see the PowerPoint when it's on there. Okay, wonderful. I just want to make sure I wasn't talking and nobody could hear me. Okay. So how do we achieve a balanced diet? So a balanced diet is achieved by consuming a wide variety of macronutrients. So that might be a word that you're familiar with and maybe not, and that's perfectly fine because we're going to talk about it. But macronutrients are your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. Each of these nutrients has its own characteristics, which are essential to a variety of body functions. So each one does something a little bit different for our body. The foods that we consume also contain micronutrients. So we have macronutrients, which are big essential types of food, and then we have our micronutrients, which are our vitamins and minerals. So with these, and if we have a good amount of fluid intake, then we're doing great nutrition-wise. So to dive in a little bit more on our macronutrients, so our carbohydrates, our protein, and our fats, we need a certain amount of each of these in our daily caloric diet. So the average population is about a 2,000 calorie diet. So of that, you want the majority of your calories to come from carbohydrates. So that would be 45 to 65% of those calories from carbs. You want 20 to 35% of that from fats and 10 to 35% from protein. So to kind of dive in a little bit and talk about what each macronutrient does for you. So simply put, for carbohydrates, they provide the body with energy and they regulate your blood sugar. So carbohydrates are the main source of energy for your body and for your brain. This is the preferred source of energy. So in the event that we don't have enough carbohydrates, your body will break down other macronutrients and use that as energy. But carbohydrates is the most bioavailable. So it's the best source for our energy. So there's two forms of carbohydrates. We may be familiar with these, but there's simple and there's complex. So our simple type of carbohydrates are broken down quickly, and these are what's found in fruits and milk, and then of course like your candies and your chocolate. That would be a simple type of carb, but most importantly, your fruits and your milk are considered simple. And then your complex carbohydrates take much longer to break down, and they are found in your whole grains, your beans, and your vegetables. So anything that has a really good amount of fiber in it would be considered a complex carbohydrate. So for protein, of course, protein is essential to build, strengthen, and repair or replace tissue. Sorry. And then for fat, so dietary fats, so fat provides your body with energy and supports cell growth. It helps to protect your organs and keep your body warm. It also assists with the body to absorb some nutrients and produce hormones. So these would be our fat-soluble vitamins, which we'll get into here in a minute. And then we have three main types of fat. So that would be our saturated, our unsaturated, and our trans fat. So to dig a little bit deeper into our carbohydrates. So again, so we have our simple and our complex. Simple, of course, being our fruits and our milk, and then our complex being our whole grains. So simple is comprised of a single monosaccharide unit. So this is kind of a bit of organic chemistry here, but it's not too clustered. It's just simple as it is. So it's easy to break down, easy to digest. Generally, anything that's a simple carbohydrate is going to taste sweet. So if you think about when you're having a glass of milk or a piece of fruit. And this is a type of carbohydrate that quickly raises your blood glucose level. So I believe on Wednesday we're going to have a presentation talking about sports nutrition, and this will really get into what type of carbohydrates to eat before a specific workout. Here we're just keeping it pretty basic. But if you think about when you eat a piece of fruit or something that might be a simple carbohydrate, a glass of milk, you might get this burst of energy, and then it might drop pretty quickly, which is exactly what it does. It spikes up your blood glucose level, and then it drops it as well. So when we think about the complex, again, refers to the polysaccharide that's made up of hundreds of thousands of these units, so much harder to break down. Takes the time to digest. It's less sweet, so you don't have that sweetness that you get with a simple carb. And then it slowly raises your blood glucose level. So it would be more like a bell curve. If you can visualize that, that'll give you a better idea of how a complex carbohydrate affects your blood glucose and your energy. So our simple carbohydrates, like I said, would be our milk, our fruit, and then of course, if you're having candy, your soft drinks, or your table sugar. So milk, when we think about that being a simple carbohydrate, it also provides us really great nutrients that are essential. So milk is really the greatest source of calcium and vitamin D that you can get. If we talk about plant-based types of milk, so your almond beverage or your cashew beverage, these can be fortified with vitamin D, but they won't have near as much calcium as what you would get in milk. So this is a great source of getting your calcium, vitamin D, and protein. Fruit, if we think about fruit, also a simple carbohydrate or a simple sugar. In my practice previously, when I was practicing as a private dietitian, a lot of my clients would be worried about eating fruit and trying to avoid sugar, but we wanna kind of veer away from that and think that fruit is a really great source of a carbohydrate, gives us a good amount of energy. It's super rich in micronutrients. Each type of fruit has its own specialty or what it provides you with for vitamins and minerals. And then fruit can also contain some fiber as well, which is also going to help slow down that blood glucose and digestion. So if you're having an apple, try and keep the skin on. That'll give you more of the fiber and more of the nutrients. So this is an interesting little picture that I like to show. So this is the difference and why I really like to, or why we like to really promote the consumption of whole grains versus your white grains. So picture this as being the wheat grass that you see in the fields. So the whole grain products contain the entirety of the entire grain. So it can be from any grains. It could be barley or oats, sorghum, buckwheat or wheat. And it contains the fiber-filled bran, the vitamin-packed germ, and then the starchy endosperm. So it contains, there's nothing taken away from it, nothing added to it. It's just that in its entirety. And as you can see from this image, it explains the importance of each of these areas within the wheatgrass. Now, if we move over to whole wheat or the white grain, that is made from germ, bran, and endosperm, but it's specifically from the wheat plant. And then our refined grains like our white bread are just the endosperm. So unfortunately, if we're consuming white bread or white pasta, we're not getting the fiber-rich outer layer of the bran, and we're not getting the nutrient-rich core. So this is where we really want to focus on pulling ourselves to consuming more whole grains. This can be challenging for some just based on taste and texture and getting used to it. But if you start it off slow and you mix kind of half whole grain rice with half white rice, you can build up your tolerance in that way. So to dive a little bit further into complex carbs, so again, this would be our whole grains, our starchy vegetables. So whole grains, like we just talked about in the last slide, are high in nutrients, and it also helps to reduce the risk of disease. So this would be kind of your diabetes or heart disease. So fiber plays a really big role in the prevention of these diseases. Fiber is also really essential for our digestive health. So it helps with our bowel movements and keeping everything moving in the body. It improves our cholesterol and our blood sugar levels. And then again, with disease prevention. So diabetes, heart disease, and bowel cancer. So fiber is also important to help you stay full for longer. So if you eat something like whole grain, it would be really fibrous and it's satiating and it keeps you full. Whereas if we turn it on the other hand and we have something that's like a refined white bread, we won't get that same fullness that we would get from whole grain. So vegetables, so of course some of our vegetables do contain carbohydrates. So these are mostly our root vegetables. So carrots, potatoes, mostly potatoes, beets, any of those vegetables that grow in the soil and grow in the ground, they would be more starchy. But if we think about them as a carbohydrate, they're also really rich in vitamins and minerals. So each vegetable has its place with your dinner. I'm sure with Easter coming up, we're going to have a great variety of supper virtually with our families over FaceTime. I know that's what we're going to do here to kind of connect with our family, but we're going to have a wide variety of root vegetables like your beets and your carrots and your potatoes or sweet potatoes or whatever. So all really great sources of vitamins and minerals. So moving on to our fats. So we have three main types of fats. So we have saturated, unsaturated, and trans. We're likely familiar with these. So I'm going to dive into them a little bit further. So our saturated fats would be our meats, butter, dairy products. This is the type of fat that would be solid at room temperature. So if you think about that butter being solid, the fat that runs along the side of your meat or throughout your meat, that's solid. So saturated fat will increase the levels of your bad cholesterol. So this is the LDL. So sometimes to remember, we refer to it as lousy. So low density lipoprotein, LDL is lousy, so bad cholesterol. And this bad cholesterol, the LDL, actually can clog your arteries. So it's something that we want to keep at the minimum within our diet. Unsaturated, on the other hand, this is the best source of fat that we can get for our diet and really helps with a lot of our body functions. So if we think about our omega-3s and our omega-6s, this is from the unsaturated fat. So we get this from our vegetable oils. So that could be canola or olive, avocado, saffron, all of these great oils. I'm sure we all have a preferred oil of choice. These would be liquid at room temperature. So again, thinking about those bottles of oil that might be sitting on our kitchen counter. So when we consume unsaturated fats, they actually increase the levels of our good cholesterol. So our HDL, our happy cholesterol, this will increase that level, which is super great because HDL grabs the LDL, the bad cholesterol, and takes it to the liver where it's broken down and removed from the body. So the more unsaturated fats that we have in our diet, like our monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, so our vegetable oils and our good avocados and all of these good fatty foods, this will actually really help to lower disease by removing that bad, lousy LDL cholesterol. So finally, I just added this in this morning actually to talk about trans fats because I do get a couple questions about it. So we're likely all familiar with trans fats and kind of how they're in the fast food and everything that we eat. Something that's interesting as well is that Health Canada, I believe back in 2017, banned trans fats from being added to food as of September of this year. So as of September 2020, trans fats are not allowed to be added into foods here in Canada, which is really, really great because trans fats can increase your risk of heart disease. It can increase your bad cholesterol and decrease your good cholesterol, which can build up a bunch of fatty deposits that can clog your arteries. So essentially, some foods naturally contain trans fats, so some dairy, some meat that we consume as well, but it can no longer be added. So what we would find trans fats in right now would be your commercially baked food, your fried food with vegetable shortenings such as fries and donuts. But soon enough, and hopefully it's already been implemented quite a bit across Canada, but at least by September of 2020, these won't be added to food anymore, which is a really great move from Health Canada. So this is a little chart showing the comparison of our dietary fats. So if we look at the bottom, we have our red, which is our saturated fat, our blue and our orange, which is our polyunsaturated fat, so our omega-6s and omega-3s. And then we have monounsaturated fat as the yellow. So that would be your omega-9. So none of these are super important to know a whole lot about, but just knowing that polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat are the fats that you want to consume more. So if we think about these in respect to our oils, we want to make sure that we have mostly blue, orange, and yellow. So if you look at the first few, so you have canola is a good choice, olive oil is a good choice. Those are kind of the main ones. Avocado's not on here, but that's a main one as well that would be high in these unsaturated fats. If we think about our butter, our lard, our coconut oil, do we see how much saturated fat is in that and how that can really affect our arteries and our health if this is something that we consume on a regular basis? Now, again, everything is all about balance, and butter and coconut oil can add really great textures and taste to food, but doing it all within moderation and making sure that those aren't your oils or your fats of choice. But there's always a time and place to be able to enjoy these as well. So protein. So protein, as we know, is important for the growth and repair of our cells. Proteins comprised of many, many molecules made up of what we call amino acid compounds. So some of these amino acids are made by your body, whereas others are essential. So these are ones that we have to get from our diet. So how do we get these? We get them by consuming protein-rich foods daily, since your body doesn't have a way to store this nutrient. So you can get full protein from our fish or chicken or meats, and then our plant-based as well through soy products or legumes, lentils, and then dairy will provide protein as well. So to go a little bit further into the protein sources, so we have our lean meats. So this would be kind of our poultry. You can have beef as a lean meat if you choose to cut the fat off the ends of it, or choosing a less fatty cut of meat. These contain all of the essential amino acids. So if you have a couple eggs, or you choose to have a chicken breast or whatever, this is going to give you all the amino acids that you need for your body. Now, if we think about our plant-based, which is something that we really want to start implementing into our diet more frequently, some of them contain all of the essential amino acids, but some of them don't. So you can find great charts on Dietitians of Canada and different resources that even we can put together for you if it's something that you'd like, on different ways to pair your plant-based proteins to form a complete protein. So to make sure that what you're consuming, you're getting all of the essential amino acids that you need to help build and repair your body. So plant-based sources of protein, aside from being filled with protein, they're also rich in our fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So really great for your heart health, really great for getting a good array of micronutrients, great for satiating. So if we think about when we have beans or lentils and how filling they can be. So I usually like to recommend, I know a thing on the go right now is Meatless Monday. So trying to give that a try. Lots of great recipes online from great sources like dietitians or nutritionists, and you can give one of these a try. And especially now, where if we dig through our pantries, we might have cans of beans back there, or chickpeas or whatever that have maybe collected dust that you haven't looked at. This is a great time to really pull everything out of your pantry and eat what you have available to avoid having to go out too often. So our micronutrients. So that's it for our macronutrients. If you have any questions, I'll come back to that there at the end of the presentation. Just write them down or write them in the chat and we'll go through them. So our micronutrients are our vitamins and our minerals. So vitamins are necessary for energy production, great for immune function, assist with blood clotting, along with a bunch of other different functions. But those are the main ones that I like to point out. For minerals, these play an important role in your growth, in your bone health, and in fluid balance. So minerals, bone health, you think, okay, calcium is a mineral, great, perfect. So we must obtain micronutrients from food because our body can't actually produce vitamins and minerals for the most part. So generally you can say, okay, my body doesn't produce it, I have to get it through food. So this is why they're referred to as essential nutrients. So the micronutrient of each food is so different. So this is why we really want to focus on eating a good variety of foods so that you get enough vitamins and minerals. So if you think back to Canada's Food Guide and that beautiful, colorful plate that you have, and think about, I know unrealistically, we're not going to have 15 to 20 different types of fruits and vegetables on our plate in the day, but really thinking about making sure that you have a nice, colorful plate, because each vegetable that you have is going to provide you with different nutrients that are essential for your body. So the vitamins that I want to talk to you about, there's two different types. So we have water-soluble vitamins and we have fat-soluble vitamins. So our water-soluble, like our vitamin B and our vitamin C, are those that can dissolve in water. So these vitamins, when you consume them, they're carried to the body's tissues, but are not stored in the body. So this kind of means that, okay, if I consume too much vitamin B, or vitamin C, I'm just going to end up peeing it out because it's water soluble and it doesn't get stored in the body. So if we think now to our fat soluble vitamins, these are our vitamin A, D, E, and K. These are vitamins that can only dissolve in fats and oils. So they're absorbed with the fats in the diet and in the bloodstream, and they can be actually stored in the body's fatty tissue. So this actually means that you can reach toxic levels with our fat-soluble vitamins because they are stored in the body, but it will require a really, really excessively high intake of these vitamins in order to do that. So it's quite unlikely that you can, I guess, overdose on any of the vitamins, but just knowing that you're fat soluble, it gets stored in the body. So it's also really difficult to get deficient in these as well. Whereas our water soluble, it can be more likely to become deficient in it. So for our micronutrients, this is really just mostly talking about minerals, but then I go into vitamin here a little bit as well. So calcium, so again, calcium we can find in our dairy products. Some nuts contain calcium as well, so almonds is a great source of that. Leafy green vegetables, and then fortified foods. So fortified foods are types of food where a mineral is added to that food. So that could be a lot of the types of breakfast cereals that we consume. So calcium is best known, of course, for its prevention in osteoporosis, but it's also important for blood clotting and for normal nervous system function. So we usually associate calcium with our bones, but we also want to associate calcium with these other really super great things that it does. So when we're consuming calcium, vitamin D, which is a fat-soluble vitamin, which is stored in our body, this vitamin is important for the absorption of calcium from the stomach and for the functioning of calcium in the body. So you need that vitamin D in order for that calcium to work properly. So making sure that you're having a diet rich in vitamin D, and being the sunshine vitamin and all of that stuff. I know here in Halifax, luckily the sun's peeking out now, but I saw a photo today on the CFMWS Facebook page of snow in Alberta. So I apologize if you're not getting too much vitamin D there right now. So more depth into our minerals. So the minerals that I chose to talk about are really the ones that are most essential and that also there's most deficiency here in Canada. So there is quite a few of us who might be deficient in calcium or magnesium or iron or phosphorus or all of these. So we're going to go through these a little bit more just so that you can have a Victoria on your shoulder when you're cooking your food and being like, oh, I should really put something in here that has high calcium because I might be low in it. So magnesium is something that you can get from a variety of different foods. So look at that list. It's in all kinds of stuff that we can consume today. So magnesium is necessary for biochemical functions that control many actions in our body. So muscle contractions, nerve impulses, blood sugar control, regulates your blood pressure, and maintains healthy, strong bones. So magnesium has a variety of things that it can help for you. So a really great mineral to make sure that you're getting a good amount of. Now, if we look at this list, a lot of the stuff on this list, I would say that most of us consume fairly often. So that's great. Continue to do that. If you don't consume a whole lot of foods, maybe jot these down, and then you can take a look and make sure that you include them into your diet. Potassium is needed for normal nervous system functioning, muscle contraction, and can have a really large effect on your health. It helps to maintain your heart rhythm. So this is obviously a very important function in our body, so potassium is really essential for us. So again, you can get it through a variety of fruits and vegetables, particularly bananas and potatoes are going to be high in your potassium. Your legumes, so introducing more of those plant-based proteins is a great way to get a good variety of minerals. Milk, of course, nuts, and then some meats as well. And then finally, I want to talk about iron. So there's quite a bit of the population that is deficient in iron. So it's important that you have a good amount in your diet of iron-based sources. Now, this can be somewhat challenging for anyone who might be vegetarian or vegan to make sure that you do have enough iron in your diet, but by making sure that you're eating really your complete protein sources, so really pairing those vegetarian-based or plant-based proteins together to make sure that it's complete, to make sure that you're getting the iron that you need. So iron is needed for the formation of hemoglobin, which is the part that carries oxygen from the lungs to the body cells. So this is what's in our blood that brings the oxygen that we bring and carries it all around into the body to all of the sources that it needs. So again, you can get it through meat. So your beef, your red meats are really high in iron. But again, we want to think about that when it comes to saturated fats and minimizing those in our diets as much as we can. Our eggs are a great source of iron, dark green leafy vegetables, your legumes, like I spoke about, whole grains, and then enriched food products. So you might also come across some food products that have been enriched with iron. So fluids. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm really not a good water drinker. I try. I tell everyone to drink more water, and then I can't seem to do it myself. So this time of the year, it gets a little bit easier for some of us because we might be outdoors, might be getting warmer, sweating, so you need to replenish that water, but really trying to find ways to make sure that you're getting enough fluid. So for me, if I add lemon or some type of fruit to my water, then I'll enjoy it a little bit more than just a glass of plain water. So if you're not a water drinker, maybe try and set a goal for that this week to try and find, maybe you have some frozen fruit or something in your freezer that you kind of want to get rid of. Maybe throw that into your glass of water, and that'll help flavor it a bit more and maybe make it more enticing to consume it. So fluid, of course, if we think about what the importance of it is and why we truly need it. So we know our body is mostly made up of fluid. It helps to regulate our body temperature, It lubricates our joints. It prevents infections. It helps to deliver the nutrients to cells, helps with organ functioning, and then it also improves your sleep quality, your cognition, and your mood. So fluids are super important. And when I talk about fluids, we want to try and aim for 6 to 8 glasses of water or any other fluid as well. So you can get your fluid intake through other sources. So if you have a tea in the morning, a coffee, but of course not too many throughout the day. Juices, so 100% fruit juice would count towards your fluids as well, but really trying to put that focus on letting water be that fluid of choice. Others, so of course I'm a big mini egg fan. As I look on my counter of a mega size bag of mini eggs, and 'tis the season of the Easter Bunny coming to our houses and delivering chocolate. And I just want to make sure that when we think about a balanced diet, it really is just that. It really is balance. So I'm not here to tell you, and no one's here to say that like there's not room for these in your diet. So I just want to say that there's a place for all of those favorite foods within a healthy diet. It's all about balance and moderation. So our other foods, what I'm referring to would be like your candy, your chocolate, your fast food, your processed food. I know my favorite food and my real vice is a really great plate of nachos. There's a time and place for that. As long as you're eating a good variety, like 80% of your time you're eating a really good, vast, balanced plate like the Canada's Food Guide. And then the other 20%, you can have those other things that you really like to enjoy to avoid depriving yourself and making sure that you're still satisfying your desires and kind of what you want to eat. So really out of this, I just wanted to say that it's really important to know that balance is just that. So everything within moderation. So I wanted to talk just a little quick point about fad diets. So this week, if you follow the PSP Halifax Facebook page, every Wednesday we're going to feature one of the health promotion specialists. So there's 3 of us here in Halifax. Each week we're going to kind of debunk the myths of fad diets. So if you're really interested in learning about that, then tune in to our PSP Halifax page and you can take a look at what we're talking about with fad diets. But what a fad diet really is it's a diet that's popular for a short period of time. So if we think about the keto diet, that's actually still quite popular. Gluten-free was a popular fad diet until it was recognized that you shouldn't do gluten-free unless you're wheat intolerant or celiac disease. Atkins, paleo, cleanses, detoxes, all of that kind of stuff, they usually promise a really rapid weight loss and other health advantages, but it's usually too good to be true because it promotes a quick fix. It's generally characterized by being highly restrictive or has unusual food choices. So if we think about the celery juice cleanse, if anyone's familiar with that, really just celery juiced, and it's supposed to do all of these really great things to your body. Well, you know what? if it's supposed to do all these really great things to your body, it's probably too good to be true, and too easy. So we want to avoid anything that's going to completely restrict anything from our diet, because as we talked about over the last half an hour to 45 minutes, is that each food has its place. There's a reason why we need to have a good array of carbs and proteins and fats, right? So we don't want to eliminate, any of those from our diet. These diets can also lead to some serious health problems. We won't go too deep into that, but again, by eliminating food sources, this can lead to that. So balanced eating, or a balanced diet, is not just about food. It's about being mindful of your eating habits. So really taking the time to sit down and eat and enjoy the dinner that you're about to eat, and then being aware of your hunger cues and noticing when you're hungry and also when you're full. So do you sit at the dinner table when you're eating your food? Are you eating because you're hungry, or are you eating because you're bored? So really trying to cue into what those signals are for you, and trying to learn those things about your body. Cooking more often. I mean, what better time than now when we're all at home to really get into cooking more often. So plan what you're going to eat. So this is a great time to sit down with your family or your roommates or whoever's in your household, and planning what you're going to eat for the week by looking through your cupboards and your pantry and your fridge and freezer and deep freeze and all that stuff that's just been housing food for who knows how long, and really plan what you're going to eat, and then involve others in the planning and preparing of meals as well, so that everybody's involved. Enjoying your food, so knowing that your culture and food traditions can be a great part of healthy eating, really thoroughly enjoying every bite that you're eating, and not just eating because, oh, I gotta go do whatever, I have to make sure that I just get something to eat really quick. Actually really taking the time to sit down and enjoy your food. And then eating meals with others. Now, this can be quite challenging right now, unfortunately, and this weekend with Easter being coming up, I know we usually have quite a good family gathering, but this time's going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. So maybe planning to do a meal with others for FaceTime. So saying, okay, dinner's going to be at 6, and then doing a good FaceTime group chat with all of your family to be able to enjoy that food together. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the cravings that we may have while we're sitting at home facing this pandemic. So we're spending more time at home, and we're purchasing bulk food online weekly. I know I am, for curbside groceries. It can be dreary with our April showers, and then the unknown of when we're going to be back into our regular routine can really cause our body and our mind to start craving and consuming excess calories from foods that we don't often consume. So we're all in the same position. We all are in a messed up routine. Each day is not the same as it used to be, not even a little bit, not at all. And we might be reaching for things that we don't normally buy. So recognizing that that's okay. This is something that we're all going through together, but trying to become more aware of these. So we might have the TV on quite often because we're listening to the government talk about what's happening in our province or what's happening across Canada. There also might be more cartoons on if you're at home and you have the little ones watching TV. So this is where I like to talk a little bit about food marketing and how it can influence our choices. So if you think about the McDonald's Golden Arch, as soon as you see it, it's recognized all across the world that this is McDonald's. So a wonderful marketing tactic on their part. But starting to recognize that these marketing tactics are actually done purposefully, of course, because they need revenue. But you can make something much more nutritious and delicious in your own kitchen. So you see something on TV, it's a food marketing of some type, and it made you crave something. Try and think about how you can maybe make that at home. I know it's hard when you already have that in your mind that that's something that you want, but really being aware that you probably weren't hungry and you weren't craving that before you saw that on TV, so why are you now? So really trying to dive in and recognize that. I also want to say that you I'd like to promote that you still continue to eat your usual routine. So if you're someone who wakes up and has breakfast generally before you go to work, then do that same routine. So sit down at the table, enjoy your breakfast, then go to your office and do your work. Take a break at lunch, step away from your computer, log off your email, and take that much deserved lunch. And then, of course, finishing the day off with supper. So really trying to stick to that regular routine can be super challenging. I know it is for myself, but just got to try and keep working through it. So aside from the 3 meals that we want to make sure we have throughout the day, I also want to make sure that we have nutrient-dense snacks. So we're going to talk just here in a minute a couple great ideas for different snacks that you can have in between meals, just to curb any cravings that you get throughout the day. And what leads into this now is talking about mindless snacking. So are you eating in front of the TV after supper? Are you skipping meals because you're in a weird routine? Or are you eating merely just because you're bored? Next time you're actually reaching for a snack, really try and be aware of your environment and tune into if you are actually truly hungry. So being home is a really great opportunity to start to create new habits. You've always wanted to meal plan maybe, but never had the time. You want to learn how to make your own sourdough bread. I know that's what we're doing here at our house. We have a mothering culture up above my fridge right now. Set some goals to really focus on building new habits. And again, I like to emphasize that eating is all about balance. There's room in our diets for those not so nutritious snacks. So tips for staying in. So I'll run through this quite quickly. Prior to making a grocery list, really great to check through your fridge and your freezer and your pantry for expiring food. I didn't realize that I had Costco-sized frozen fruits and vegetables in my deep freeze for who knows how long, which is great because now I have all this fruits and vegetables that I can use to smoothies. Frozen vegetables are super great to be able to cook. They cook really fast. So really diving in through your pantry and all that stuff to find out what food you actually have. If you have leftover meats and vegetables that maybe you cooked for dinner on Saturday and its shelf life's kind of running low, these can be transformed into meals by cutting them up, and you can add them to soups or salads or sandwiches. Freeze your expiring food. So blanching your vegetables. I'm going to be doing a video on this this week actually. So blanching your vegetables prior to freezing them, this will help to prevent the loss of nutrients and flavors. So I'm not sure if anyone practices this now, but this is something that I really try to do because otherwise you can be quite wasteful by just letting your vegetables go to waste. Freezing your fruit. So if you have a pint of blueberries or strawberries that might be kind of on the verge, they're maybe only have like a day or so left before they're going to start to turn bad, freeze them. So lay the berries on a tray, one by one, place them in the freezer. So this will avoid it chunking together. And then once they're frozen, take them out, plop them into a freezer safe bag, and then put them in the freezer. Then they're individually frozen and you don't have this big, large chunk of fruit that you have to use a massive amount in one smoothie. And then batch cooking, so making soups and stews and chilies and stuff that you can batch cook and put in a bunch of containers and put them in the freezer or have them in the fridge, just stuff to be able to grab. So the priority purchases that we really want to focus on during this time is your long-lasting fruits and vegetables. So we really want to avoid going to the grocery store too often. So again, for me, I'm not sure what it's like in your community, but for us, it's extremely challenging to get the curbside pickup. It's like a week out. So usually a week before, once I pick up the groceries that I have right now, I'll start building a new list for a pickup a week later just to secure a spot. You can add things to the order. You can take things off the order. So it's a really great way to first of all, keep track of what you need and to make sure that you're not also adding in mindless things when you're trying to rush through to put your order through. So long-lasting fruits and vegetables, these would be our good root vegetables. They last quite a bit of time. Citrus fruits, bananas, and apples will last a while. And then making sure that you have a fair amount of garlic, ginger, and onions to add flavor to a variety of meals. So these are really, really great vegetables to just kind of throw in and add a bunch of flavor to stuff. Frozen fruits and vegetables, like we talked about. So frozen fruits and frozen vegetables are flash frozen, so that locks in the nutrients and flavor. So I also like to point out during this time that fresh vegetables, frozen vegetables, and canned vegetables all contain the same nutrient content. So you're still going to get the same amount of nutrients whether it's fresh or whether it's frozen. Canned as well, but the one thing with canned that we want to watch out for is we want to make sure that there's no sodium added or that they're low sodium. Grains, so again, choosing those whole grains, so choosing the whole grain bread, whole grain cereal, rice and pasta. Your ancient grains like your quinoa, amaranth, and millet, you can get quick cook of these. Sometimes you can buy them and you have to soak them for quite some time, but you can get quick cooked ancient grains, which are just as easy to make as rice. And then your starchy roots. So again, so if we think about our carbohydrates, our starchy complex carbohydrates, these would be our potatoes or our sweet potatoes or our beets or any type of like really rich root vegetable. So if you're making these, of course, it's best if you bake them with a little bit of oil, broil them, and steam them is the best way to prepare these. And then our protein foods, so unsalted nuts and seeds, those are going to provide us with protein. They're super great tossed on top of a salad or even just having a snack in between meals. Your 100% nut butters, so whether that's almond butter or peanut butter, just making sure that it's 100% and that the only ingredient is oil and the nut of choice that you choose. Eggs are really great. They'll last for quite some time. And then again, your canned or dried beans, lentils, and legumes. So when we're thinking about things that we're grabbing throughout the day because we might be a little bit munchy, these are just some ideas that I put together for comfort food. So if you're craving something sweet, you're going to get satisfaction from a piece of fresh fruit. Again, it's a simple carbohydrate, so it's going to be sweet. So pairing that apple with peanut butter or apple with cheese, the fat that you consume from that's going to fill you up for longer and or satiate you for longer rather. And then that apple peel is going to have fiber in it, so it's going to also fill you up. Maybe you have some raw vegetables. Great to just, you notice that you have a big bag of celery or carrots. Just chop them up, put them into little Ziploc bags or whatever. Grab it and then dip in hummus. Baked tortillas and salsa, preferably something that doesn't have a whole lot of salt in it. Air pop popcorn, even Smart Pop, like the pre-pop that you can buy at the grocery store. That's a really great source as well because it's pre-pop, no butter added, nothing. And then even if you want to add a little bit of butter, just making sure that you're doing it yourself so you know exactly how much is on it. Cereal and milk is a great pair, choosing, of course, like a whole grain cereal. And then just plain yogurt and frozen berries. So these are the available resources that are available for CAF members. So you can, this is going to be recorded, so it will be available on CAF Connection, like I mentioned. So if you don't have a chance to jot all these great numbers down, these are some resources that I wanted to make sure were pointed out to you during this pandemic and during everything that's been going on for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to exit out of this now so that I can see what's happening over here. Is everyone still there? Good? Perfect. Okay, awesome. Ben, I guess you're talking about blanching, freezing seasonal foods. Yeah, absolutely. So if you have something in your, it can be seasonal foods, or it can be something that you purchased that maybe is about to go bad. Maybe you've had it in there for quite some time. Just thinking about blanching them before they go bad. Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Well, you can find me or any of the great health promotion specialists through social media now. We're pretty active on that. So if you have any other questions, please reach out. This will be pre-recorded, so you can tune in to me again, and hopefully I will see you again another day some week. Cheryl, how can we reduce the sugar amounts in homemade recipes? That's a great question, Cheryl. So to reduce the sugar amounts, it really takes a little bit of kind of figuring it out. I mean, you can use sugar substitutes like stevia. This is something that is a natural source of sugar, so it doesn't affect your blood sugar as much. But the stevia can also add an undesirable taste. I know for me, preferably, I don't love stevia. You can also use sugar is sugar. That's one thing I want to say. But table sugar, you can replace with honey or agave or maple syrup. It will add, if you put in a less amount of that, it will add quite a bit of flavor. But the difference with our maple syrup and our honey is that they take a little bit longer than table sugar to be able to raise up your blood glucose. So it won't affect you as much. So Cheryl, it's really just kind of a trial and error to see how much sugar you truly need in that recipe, because really it merely is just for the flavor. Canada's new food guide is using more dinner size plate or whatever it calls. So yeah, there's actually quite a bit of evidence to say that using a smaller plate, like as opposed to a giant dinner plate, so using a smaller salad size plate, you're actually more likely to not eat as much food. So you're only going to fill however much room is on your plate. So this is a great strategy if you find that your portion sizes are too much, is to opt for a smaller size plate, because there is tons of scientific evidence to show that as human beings, we will we won't have as much food if we have it on a smaller plate. Anything else? Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much again. If you have any questions, you can find us all through social media, and we're going to have some really great webinars weekly now, and there's 3 happening per day. So I believe this morning was a French healthy eating, and then you joined in with me, and then this afternoon at 1:30 Eastern time, I believe, is going to be with my colleague Madison, and she'll be talking about healthy eating as well. So much of the same information that I shared, but just a little bit of her own personal twist on it. And then throughout the week, stay tuned. There's going to be tons of more information as well. So thanks so much. Have a great week, and I hope to see you all again soon.